Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for today, which is Tuesday. It is July the 8th. I'm glad to have you with me. Welcome aboard. We're going to be getting into, I guess, a thing that I thought I maxed out during the election cycle, and it's coming back. I have MAGA influencer fatigue. I'm completely worn out by these people. And I kind of kept this to myself because it's not necessary during an election cycle, but I was seriously pondering whether it was even worth voting for Donald Trump. Not because I supported the other candidate. I despised the other candidate, and the things that they said were ridiculous to me. But I really, really dislike the idolatry that goes on around somebody. And it's not even Donald Trump's fault. And so, at the end of the day, I was talking to Steve Baker yesterday, and I said, Steve, I voted for Donald Trump so that you didn't go to prison. And if I'm being totally honest, I guess that's all that I really needed to get. I got it. My friend didn't go to prison. So I got that going for me. But the people that go out there and lick the toes of a man that doesn't know they exist and say the most absurd and ridiculous things, that live in the 4D, 5D, 12D chess range, that everything he does is gilded with gold and it's perfect. I doubt Donald Trump thinks that everything he does is perfect. I hope he doesn't. We're all imperfect. We all make mistakes every day. It's so disgusting and disingenuous. And the reason why it matters to me is because, unfortunately, I live in this space where the way that my family was treated, the way that my friends' families were treated, and many of you were treated, it's directly related to this hero worship, this nonsense, these fake bad actors. And so, yeah, I did pull the lever for Trump. But that doesn't mean that bad actions get a pass. And one of the worst actions that you could have is to have your promises be that you're going to de-weaponize government, because there's nothing more dangerous to America. I got a chance to go talk to Alex Jones yesterday. We'll kind of cover some of that because it was kind of funny. Of course, we had about 1 million impressions on something that I didn't say. That's just the way that it goes. Jump on Alex Jones' show and anything could happen. But Trump ran on an assumption that we all believed he would de-weaponize government. And he has a really serious vested interest in doing that. If Donald Trump does not de-weaponize the things that came after him and his family, we're all in jeopardy. I'm probably higher on the list than some of you. But it's legitimately antithetical to American liberty to have an intelligence agency that can kill you on American soil. So let me say that really clearly. The people that are running our FBI, and the reason why I continue to harp on it, it's not that it's particularly interesting to me. It's actually kind of gross. It would have been nice. My buddies and I were talking the other day, people whose names you would recognize. We were saying, there was a concern on some of their part that, Trump would get elected. He would solve these problems. He would put people in charge that would solve them. And then what do we talk about here on this podcast every day? Is there even a podcast after that? Unfortunately, human condition dictates that there will always be significant failures that we could talk about. And there'll be some victories too. We got a couple of those as well. I love seeing lefties that make terrible decisions, like legitimate communists, being upset as they try to do things that work against the nature of, work against their constituents, work against American people, and so on. But God, there's something really tiring about not fixing the one thing that could kill you. I mean, when you're working in emergency medicine, which is something I did, you are supposed to identify and correct life threats first. But that also means that you can get rid of and ignore things that are referred to as distracting injuries. So maybe you have a big serious bleed on a hand, but it's not arterial and it's certainly not going to kill you. But you have a quiet femoral bleed, or you have a hip that's broken, it's bleeding internally, and we have to set it and get you out. We have to be able to identify what are the terminal fatal wounds and what are the distracting injuries. And what I continue to see is people majoring in the minors again. They are excited about things that are not going to kill us. Illegal immigration will probably kill us slowly and over a long period of time. But our intelligence agencies will kill us in this country and are probably the single biggest threat to American liberty as we know it. Your ability to do the things that are in the Bill of Rights, because they are the ones that can both protect or violate the Bill of Rights based on who they bring in. And yesterday we got some word from folks inside the Bureau that a woman, it's not always a woman, but it often is, a woman who is one of the worst types of actors, someone who was sleeping with her superior, sleeping with a senior manager, was now named to a senior position of authority, a deputy assistant director role out at CGIS. And this is someone we've talked about before. She was the only lady sitting at the table with Kash Patel when he went out to West Virginia to see the CGIS operation. And so Kash is doing what every FBI director has done. This is Kennedy's law number one, folks. Law number one of the Kennedy rule is no matter who you nominate to be FBI director, you get Jim Comey. Chris Wray, Jim Comey. Andy McCabe, Jim Comey. Kash Patel, Jim Comey. They work the same way. Yesterday, there was a sort of this viral clip that popped around. I'm going to play it for you just so you guys understand what got said and what did not get said. Alex Jones asked me a question about, or he was trying to set up a thing. What you have to understand is when you go on Alex Jones's show, he's going to immediately try to get his point across and have you also say it. If you guys know anything about me, that's not how I operate. So we have a lot of fun. I think that's why he likes having me back in there. Also, I'm nearby. But the discussion was essentially my belief that Dan Bongino will resign from the FBI as a failure in what he's trying to do. And I don't think it's because necessarily he's a bad person. I don't think he's a great person. I don't think he's a wonderful person. I don't think he's a lovely human being. I think he's, like all of us, flawed more than many. I think he's pride. If he had any kind of like sense about what was going on, he would leave. He's damaging his reputation to a lot of folks. But I think Dan will resign. He will self-eliminate from that position. And I think Kash Patel has one of two possibilities. He'll either step over the line and Democrats will try to impeach him or have him removed, and they will cause all kinds of roadblocks, or you will see that they actually embrace him because the FBI has slowly wrapped themselves around Kash Patel, and he is becoming the director that the FBI always wants. Someone who stands up for the Bureau, who argues on behalf of the Bureau, who protects the employees of the Bureau, that actually is the front-facing shield and PR man for the entity that continues to be the FBI that it always was. And so anyway, there was this like viral clip claiming that I predicted that they'll be removed. I believe no such thing. I believe there's a possibility that he gets impeached, or you see them sort of self-eliminate. And I think that it's possible that that Dan will actually walk away. And I think the odds are very high that he will leave before the end of this calendar year, because he's not effective. It's really clear. And so now he's in this PR move where he doesn't know. I'm going to give you some examples of that in a little bit here. I'm not going to just leave that. Before we get too deep into it, and I'm already obviously on kind of a roll here, let's say thanks to my friends over at Patriot Cooler who continue to support this podcast no matter what we say, no matter how we say it. I don't even know that they're paying attention to that. They're just knowing that they wanted to support me and the operation that we have, which means they're also supporting what you guys are interested in. You guys continue to support them, and I'm appreciative for your support. It's also a really great product. It's really easy to support them. They make a good stuff. Here's one I'm sitting on the desk right now. I really like this one because it matches the wood in this office, which is great. It's patriotcoolers.com, the website, patriotcoolers with an S on the end of it.com. If you use the promo code Kyle, it'll all save you 10%. You get free shipping over $50. Buy one for you, buy one for a friend. Whenever you're in the mode to be able to replace your existing Yeti or Stanley or whatever else, they do have a lifespan, don't they? Because eventually you drop these things if you're anything like me, and eventually you dent them to the point where they no longer stand up, they just wobble. So you have to swap them out. These are really durable. They do a great job keeping things hot and cold. I left a smoothie that I brought down with me because I was having like a liquid, fruit lunch. And I rolled that down to InfoWars yesterday and left it in the car. And when I came back out, it was still frozen. They make a great product. It does what it's supposed to do. It'll keep your coffee hot all the way through church. If you guys take one on Sunday and you go into church for an hour and change, you come back out, the damn thing will still be hot. It'll still be steaming if you close the lid. Check them out. Again, I use every single one of their products. There's not one on there that I've not used as far as I can tell. Soft-sided, hard-sided coolers, the tumblers, et cetera, et cetera. They're all great. And if you guys want to get connected, email me, info@kyleseraphin.com. I'll connect you with Gary, their product manager, if you guys need to make something custom for your companies or if you want to do something like that. Let's get into today's podcast. Not talk about just coolers, but the fatigue, it's real. Like I'm actually worn down by this stuff because it's so gross. And the marching points of talking points continues. Let's get into that right now. Not just for Steve Friend, I will also sometimes do that song to myself. So look at this. This is the thing that kind of got me thinking about it today. This is an account that follows me, so kudos to Winky the Ghost. I don't know who Winky the Ghost is, but anonymous account on Twitter. Got a couple views on this picture. It's very well done. It's egg on the face of MAGA influencers. It's not just MAGA influencers who got hit with the egg in the face. And there's Liz Wheeler there, and there's DC Draino, and then there's Scott Pressler, and there's Poso, and some other people. All of these people that bend over backwards to lick the toes, I'm saying it in the nicest way possible, that's still family friendly, just doing gross, sycophantic actions. And I hate it. I hate everything about it. I think it's really gross. I don't think these people, I think they probably started off with some kind of an opinion and now they just chase audience. And as long as they're saying like that this is what we voted for and getting the same crowd that boomers on Fox News want to watch, it's not, I will never aspire to have the largest audience because the largest audience means that you have a lot of dummies that follow you. And I would far prefer to have a discerning and intelligent audience. That's what I'm saying about you for the most part. You folks tend to be much more discerning, much more skeptical, cynical. You put your questions in the comments below and I read them all the time. And I often see that all of you folks out there have like all the good questions. You're asking things. Maybe you don't know 100%. Maybe I don't know either. But isn't it nice that we should be able to ask questions, that we don't have to be in lockstep and agreement? There's no reason for us to do that. There's no reason that we all have to agree. This wasn't even the way that things were even a couple years ago. But this requirement that my opinion or your opinion come out of my mouth. I expect that my opinion comes out of your mouth. I want to disagree vigorously. Bring facts, bring evidence. Let's have a disagreement about it. Let's all agree that politicians are lying to us on a regular basis. And the question is what are the lies and what are they trying to gain from it? I don't even think it's a question of whether or not they're lying. This was the propaganda briefing that the White House put out yesterday. So there's a woman and her name is Carolyn Levitt, and she seems like a lovely person, although I don't think that's very conservative to have young babies be in your late 20s and working a job like at the White House that has such a high demand on your time. And every day you're going to go do this. There is a far more important thing this woman could be doing. There's a million older women or men who could do this job and do it well. I don't need this young lady, but it does seem like there's a strong need that Donald Trump wants to surround himself with blonde women from 25 all the way up to 70. He surrounds himself with these people, and as long as they're licking the toes properly, then they get into these jobs, and you continue to find people, like how many people actually push back against Donald Trump and say, hey, that's not a great idea, sir, for whatever it's worth. I don't know that the people here have been given even the instinct that they could get away with that. You keep hearing that he wants to surround himself with people that are not skeptical. Everybody needs someone to question you. If you don't have a brain trust where you throw ideas and someone comes back and you goes, you're out of line, man. You're off. Then you're going to be screwed. You're going to be standing in an echo chamber and you're going to just go down whatever your worst instincts are. This was the press briefing on the same day when the DOJ quietly released a memo. You guys saw it on Axios. We covered it extensively yesterday. But on top of that, yesterday, the DOJ quietly posted that memo that we read yesterday. Hold on. I've said it yesterday about 6 times here. Here's the memo. I think I've got a picture of it right here. This was confirmed legit. It showed up on DOJ's website. And again, it said, quote, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. And we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So that was confirmed legit. Now, why they released it on a Sunday, my instinct is they did it while there was a tragedy occurring in the state of Texas and children were dying in a flood. because they were hoping that this would cover the news story. They could quietly drop this thing. Some people said, well, I don't believe it because it comes from Axios. And I think I covered this yesterday, but lest I didn't, let me just say, I very briefly touched on this with Alex Jones yesterday. Leaks to the press are a tool of the FBI director. And that FBI director, who we mentioned quite earlier, who is exactly the same as Jim Comey, uses leaks the same way that Jim Comey did for the same purposes. So who you leak to, who you share a story with, tells you a little bit about the coverage that they're going to get, but it also tells you about the reaction you're going to get. And it's my belief, this is analysis, Kyle's opinion, take it or leave it. But I believe that list, that email or that memo that went out suggesting that DOJ was no longer interested in Jeffrey Epstein went to Axios on purpose, because the first people that would react to it were the MAGA influencer types who immediately would cast aspersions because it's Axios, and Axios is a left-leaning source and a well-known mouthpiece for places like the intelligence communities. So if you choose your leak, and they're happy to run with it, you also get to choose the opposition, which softens the blow for your side of the table. Why did they go to Fox? Because Fox has spent countless hours and made tons of money selling pocket catheters and reverse mortgages to people specifically covering this Epstein scandal and nonsense. And so you have to actually think that these people are understanding of one thing, if nothing else, and that's the pretty blonde lady on Fox News syndrome. They do actually understand how media works. They understand who their audience is. They understand that people think in first generation or first order thoughts. But the first order thought is, I am going to see the source the way that you and I often do. And we look at these news stories and we immediately discredit them. Why? Because the source is not credible. Because the source has proven itself to be bad previously. When you leak to Axios, you also get to set up an opposition, which softens the blow on your side. And then you get this propaganda nonsense. There's a few things I want you to listen to. Number one, she doesn't address the Epstein thing right up front. That seems strange. And the second thing is, she's not wearing a cross. And I have yet to see, and this was pointed out on social media as well, but I saw the same exact thing. I went like, oh, there's something missing from this picture. Carolyn Levitt always wears a prominent cross on her neck, the same way that my wife does. It's very understated. It's not like some gaudy thing, but it's always there. And methinks that maybe she was looking at going out and saying something. This is the most tense that I've seen her, especially when the questions start coming in. The least comfortable she looks. Because when you're the White House press secretary, and this is something I wouldn't wish on anybody, you have to be online with what the regime is going to say. The administration wants to message, even when it's a lie. Even when it's shading the truth, even when you know it's not going to be well received, your job is to go out there and take the spits and the buffets and the fruit that's thrown at you and the ugly questions, because you're doing something sketchy. And the tension in her face appears to me that she's not doing a normal back and forth with the press where she has the upper hand, which is the case when you're right. When you're wrong, you still have to go out there and eat that poop sandwich. And that's what it looks like she's doing. So take a look. You guys tell me. This is the opening, and then we're going to get into the questions, which are not great.
For the fourth month in a row, jobs numbers beat market expectations with nearly 150,000 good jobs created in the month of June. The American economy has now added nearly 700,000 jobs since January 2025, with American-born workers accounting for all job gains. President Trump drove illegal border crossings to another historic low in the month of June, and Border Patrol once again released 0 illegal aliens into our country. The Supreme Court stopped activist judges from imposing nationwide injunctions and cleared the way for President Trump to carry out his popular and common sense agenda. The University of Pennsylvania agreed to all of the Trump administration's demands and will now keep men out of women's sports. President Trump secured his trade deal with Vietnam, giving the United States total access to their markets. Because of President Trump's unleashing American energy dominance, gas prices are at 4-year lows. And when adjusted for inflation, gas prices are near the lowest levels we've seen in the last 20 years. NATO members agreed to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP, a foreign policy feat long thought impossible until President Trump made it happen. The Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities, taking out this imminent national security threat not just to the United States, but to the entire world. The president secured a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, ending the 12-day war. The president brokered a historic peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Pakistan nominated President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of his decisive diplomatic intervention to prevent.
All right, and I'm going to cut it right there. They go on and they list a bunch of great accomplishments. Way to go. The energy that is being delivered with is not the same energy. It's not like, hey, I'm coming here to tell you we're kicking ass and we're winning. What it looks like is I'm getting ready for a fight. Now, it's nuanced, but there's a tightness in the voice and the face that I'm watching, and I watch her all the time because that's what I have to do for what I do. Agree or disagree, that's fine. You guys can put it in the comments below. You think she looks the same as every day? Great, no problem. I'm telling you, that's what my impression is. So we don't have to agree on that, it's fine. She is reading out of a book and hitting it there. Oftentimes she doesn't need to do that because she has a lot of these things. She's also doing kind of like this exhaustive recap of all the great things we've done. Why do you go out and tell people all the great things you're doing unless you know that you're about to get hit with the things that you're not doing? And yes, they do briefings every day. And yes, they try to cover the news of the day. Some of those things are reaching further back than normal. So be it. Watch the pivot that happens. There are two questions here. One of them is, what are you going to say to MAGA people? Because there's a lot of MAGA people that are out there that wanted to see transparency. And there's nothing more low-hanging in the fruit when we talk about de-weaponizing or fixing some of the intelligence community issues than taking elite child predators and locking them up. I don't care whether Epstein killed himself or not. That actually is true. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is that there were people that were supposedly involved in a blackmail scheme, that were supposedly involved in hurting kids. And now you're faced with this real problem. You just had your administration, you just had your Justice Department come forward and say, that didn't happen. All those hours on Fox News, all the people who said otherwise, people in the cabinet, people that are in the administration, senior executives, the vice president, everybody made a little crack about it. Did they have special knowledge? Were they all read in and briefed on it? No, I doubt it. Is there a small possibility that this was all made up? Maybe. But there was an awful lot of smoke for there to be no fire whatsoever. And there's definitely the claim made over and over again. Like, it's not my claim. It's not your claim. It's the people that are making the counterclaim all came forward and said that children were abused, that there's child pornography, that there was these people, there's obviously victims. They had to be protected. There's hundreds of those victims, so saith the Attorney General. Kash Patel made a running commentary on how they were going to release the Black Book, which was underneath the personal control of the FBI director. I have yet to see a Kash Patel interview where he came out and says, guys, I blew it. I completely effed this up. I had no idea what I was talking about because the FBI does not have any Black Book that I can release. I am not in control of it. It is not mine. And I didn't know what I was saying. I was just trying to get into a job. Has anyone done that? Because I haven't seen it. Here's the question. What do you say to MAGA people that have been banking on children were abused? This is the classic example of the elite have a different system of justice than the regular person, that this person would have been shot in their doorway if they were not a super wealthy, intelligence community connected, billionaire playboy with multiple properties in outside the country and inside the United States. What do you tell those people when they were banking on seeing something? And by the way, the Attorney General said the names are on my desk. So we have that as the second follow-up. But here's Carolyn Levitt trying to answer this question. And you can see I'm watching the still of her face, which is just on the other screen next to me. Here, I'll show you. It's sitting over on the screen right next to me. I can't put it up at the same time. She looks tight, like she's about to get punched, which is what you do when you get punched. You set your gut and you set your face for here it comes.
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was
What?
saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. That they promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did.
Can you please look at the bright light? I will be flashing it right now. And now we're going to be talking about Operation Summer Heat. Did you ask me a question about something that was not what I wanted to talk about? We're going to talk about Operation Summer Heat. Now, the FBI doesn't do Operation Summer Heat every single year. They do some variety thereof, and they name it something else. But you want to know something crazy? Every damn year that I was in the FBI, there was a big push to go out there and try to find cold case murders. We would go knock on doors in Southeast DC when I worked in the Washington field office. Every year, they asked for every available agent to go out there and do a big push against summer crime. Why? Because that's when criminals go out and do crazy things like shoot up everything. That's what they do. They shoot up all the things. You have to be careful because there's murders that happen in the cities. Now, are those murders, are they at all related to what the FBI's job is? No, they are not. Would you like to see some of the crazy stuff that I saw happening in Philadelphia, which apparently is a regular thing in Philadelphia? It is a regular thing that I've knocked on the door and asked about. The best story that I ever had, by the way, from one of these like knock and talks where they would run us out. We would all go out with a bunch of like DC Metro PD. We'd go bang on the doors. You go walk up in these like crappy apartments in the worst neighborhoods. Hey, how you doing? I'm Kyle Seraphin. I'm with the FBI. We're asking people if they know anything about the murder that happened right outside of your doorway like 3 weeks ago. That's what we're asking about. And it was always the same retarded thing. It was always the same thing. I was like, no, I don't know nothing about nothing. Okay, fine. Close the door. I did have one guy say the funniest thing that anyone's ever said to me in a law enforcement interview. I said, somebody was murdered here. They were shot like in the courtyard 60 feet from your front step. Do you know anything about that? Did you see or hear anything? And he's like, no, man, I don't know anybody in this building. I just moved here 10 years ago. I'm serious. The man said, I just moved here 10 years ago. And we all had a good laugh about it. And then everybody has a story. Every single FBI agent in every single field office in a big urban area has a story about going out and doing whatever this version is of Operation Summer Heat. She just claimed credit for 14,000 arrests. Most of those are ICE arrests. Most of those are going to be claimed by the FBI. They're also going to be claimed by whatever other partner agencies in the JTTF are part of it. They're also going to be claimed by local and state authorities. They're going to get some credit, and also Border Patrol, ICE, DHS, Homeland Security investigations. They're all going to grab it. Everybody did 14,000 arrests. There's 14,000 FBI agents. That's not even one arrest per agent if you were to spread it around, because this is all made up. You guys want to see what it looks like? What Operation Summer Heat is supposed to be working against? It's supposed to be working against stuff like this. Yeah, it's a fisheye. Did you see that? Like, bunch of kids, some holding Glocks that have automatic weapons on them on a porch. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Did the FBI go knock on those doors? Probably not. Yeah. My point to you is you go out there and you say BS, and I ask you a question about, hey, didn't you say that the files were on your desk? And the first thing that you do is you're going to go out there and pivot and say, we're doing an awesome job. We're doing a great job at arresting people that are not what you just asked about. This is classic PR spin. I don't want to talk about that thing. It is not a good subject for me. So let me tell you about something that is good. I just told you a bunch of good stuff. As I opened, I was ready for the fight, and this is where I was going to pivot. Here's another little version of it. Again, asking what to do with the MAGA people.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth into transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay.
All right, and then you hear the period reducer question. Just look at the light right here. We're going to flash it real quick, and we are going to be done with this. This is over. We did the job. And by the way, we're doing a way better job than the previous administration, who did one of the worst jobs that there is. You're actually hearing an FBI director claim that they have fixed murder in this country. You're seeing the deputy director say similar things. That seems problematic. Does that not bother any of you? You know it's bad when Donald Trump has to go out there and he won't even address the topic that's at hand. He goes out and posts something on True Social. The FBI, under the direction of Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, is back to basics, locking up criminals and cleaning up America's streets. That's not what the FBI does, sir. Mr. President, that is not what the FBI does. The FBI goes out and does intelligence investigations, which is something Dan Bongino actually said was a great thing. They have 5,000 of them currently open with no criminal predicate because the FBI is more interested in doing investigations into people and getting information than it is in locking up bad guys. But they're trying to rebrand it despite the fact that it's not true. Quote, we have the greatest law enforcement professionals in the world, but politics and corrupt leadership often prevented them from doing their job. Newsflash for everyone. Those same people are still in the office. They still work there. They are still doing that work. The number 3 person at the FBI, a guy named William Rivers, was quietly not fired, even though he was reported to have been fired, who worked in counterterrorism division right next to a guy named Steve Jensen. And he is now the number 3 person, so that when Dan Bongino resigns at the end of this year, he's going to step up most naturally into the deputy director job. And you're going to have the same old boy network running things that you always did. There is no change. The meet the old boss, same as the new boss, same as the old boss, continues. This is cutesy time. This is the status quo is undefeated. This is whatever you want to call it. Trump says this is no longer the case, and now they've been unleashed. Zero evidence of that. There's only Just Trust Me Bro Incorporated. Dan Bongino retweets this thing, saying, we are doubling down, no letting up. In other words, the bullshit will continue until you actually believe it. Or do me a favor and look in the little bright light while the blonde lady has her sunglasses on. Because you're getting, if you guys are just watching, if you're just listening and you're not watching, like this is a Men in Black sort of reference here. There's a picture of Pam Bondi or Carolyn Levitt aged. I can't tell who it is. It doesn't really make a difference. Trying to do the little memory flashy thingy. This is bad. It's really bad. It's awful. It's not good. There's no client list, right? There's no client list. Then why did everybody talk about the client list? The current sitting, I guess, acting attorney, United States attorney in one of the districts in New Jersey is Alina Habba. She's a close confidant of the president, from what we can tell. She's buddies with Patel. They share a common PR person. She went on Piers Morgan. This is in February. They're all talking the same thing. They all promise something. We are not making claims that are not coming from this actual administration. We are actually holding them accountable to their own words. And they either all were full of shit and lied to us because they didn't know anything, or alternatively, the possibility is that this was an ugly cover-up. Either way, it is an absolutely devastating thing to your credibility if you don't address it honestly. And pivoting to Operation Summer Heat is not that. Alina Habba saying so.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court, but again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Kash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Why does she believe that? Why? Why was she led to believe that? Does she still believe that? That wasn't that long ago. That was this year. That seems like a real problem. It doesn't seem like you can pivot to Operation Summer Heat and say that you arrested a bunch of people and you stopped murder. By the way, all of those murder stats are garbage, if you guys don't know that already. They were garbage under Biden. They're not just suddenly good now. The FBI only gets what are reported to them by local jurisdictions. Those local jurisdictions overwhelmingly are incentivized to not report crime stats, certainly at the quarterly level. That's really bad for them. But they also try to keep them down because, unlike the FBI, having lower crime rates is really good for you if you're a police chief or a sheriff. You actually don't want high crime. If you're in the FBI, you love high crime. You want to report high crime, including things like white supremacy and terrorism investigations. Why? Because you get more budget. The federal government works opposite to any human rational actor. Whenever they get worse performances, there's more budget that is required. That's just how it works. So the federal system is divorced from reality. So all of the people that are reporting the crime stats have a significant incentive to lie about them or to not report them, and they're massively underreported. It gets bad. It continues. We're going to have more of this because I've got more stuff to cover on it. Before we do, let's just say thanks to the folks over at My Patriot Supply. This studio right now is powered by the Grid Doctor 3300 because we lose power here. As you guys saw, we had big floods. We're going to talk about those in a little bit. Before we do, we'll kind of have to say a little something about those folks since they've got their last day of their 4th of July sale going on right now. You can look at the headlines. It doesn't matter what we cover. There's always things that are unstable. There are things that are questionable and iffy in the United States, whether it be Iranian sleeper cells, which we talked about, and I don't know that, nuclear proliferation. You've got the people from the Middle East visiting the United States, causing the Epstein files to no longer be interesting, whatever's coming your way. It's never too soon to prepare for a crisis, but if the crisis hits, it's always too late by then. You guys can check out the the Independence Day preparedness bundle from My Patriot Supply. It's got a 1-year food supply. That's actually 4 times what we have in this house. It's a great idea. They're throwing in over $1,200 worth of survival gear for free. This is the last day for that offer if you guys want to check it out. Again, you get a full year of food. You're going to have solar backup power, which means you can charge your devices. You can charge your comms. That's critical in an emergency. You've got water filtration. Everything you need to ride out whatever might be coming your way. It's going to get there really quickly. That's the upside. They have 3 warehouses around the United States, and the free shipping happens so that when you fire, you don't have to just sit there and wait for it and hope that the emergency doesn't happen. And if you live in a place like I do, you get warnings on your phone all the time. You don't even know weather's coming in, and suddenly it's blowing and knocking over your barbecue. So check them out. It's mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. Mypatriotsupply, all spelled out, .com/Kyle. It's a great deal. Last time to take a look at this. Otherwise, we'll have another deal, but it'll be smaller. They do big things around the holidays, so check them out again if you haven't done so before. Link in the show description, mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. Let's do another little video. Like I'm saying, it's not just Alina Habba. What about the guy who's one heartbeat away from the president? They say. This is the vice president talking about it. He was on Theo Vaughn's podcast. Casually brought this up on his own. Because it is a common thing to touch point on. It was a common campaign promise for the Trump administration. There is a group of people that are not being transparent. We are advertising that there will be transparency. We're going to get to the bottom of the things. And by the way, it's assumed that there's a client list because the guy was a billionaire. How did he make his money? Where did it all come from? How did someone go to jail like Ghislaine Maxwell? How did she end up in jail? Who was she trafficking to? It was just one lady bringing a bunch of kids to one sick guy? This seems really problematic. And again, regular people who are above average intellect look around and go like, yeah, obviously there's a problem here. JD Vance is one of them.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
He just brought it up out of nowhere. The list he was talking about, like who are the corrupt scumbags in Congress, and he was like, "Yeah, seriously, no." Like, it's a touch point in the common lexicon that we all kind of understand exists. That doesn't stop the MAGA influencer types who are making me kind of nauseated. To be fair, this is one. I don't know this lady. In other words, I don't know who she is personally, but I see this account. This particular tweet got over 1 million impressions, so a lot of people saw it. Quote, I'm not saying we need to move on from Epstein. I want to see accountability for everything. What I'm saying is that Epstein is not the end-all and be-all defining moment of the Trump presidency like people here are making it out to be, so you can sell some more rage and make money. It's not about rage or money, people. It's about a simple understanding that either the elite are held to the same standard as regular people and that children matter and that we protect them, particularly young children in a sexually abused scenario, or we don't, in which case we are a failed society. It's important, but so are 100,000 other things. Nope, it's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the lowest hanging, easiest thing that you go correct. You can't spin this one, no matter how much you want to try. Here's another set of spins. These are just a couple of takes that I found. Pro-America Politics and David Marcus, who's a Fox News contributor on the digital side. Epstein is a nothing burger, always has been. Let it go. Most people in America don't agree with you on either side of the aisle. This guy, honestly, I'm just sick of talking about the Epstein list. Obsessing over it for almost a decade, hasn't done a single thing to advance our agenda or help our country. Right, so letting it go would. How absurd is that? Do you know who also didn't want to let it go? The guy who's the number 2 at the FBI. Some of us still remember that guy. This is a really, really ugly cropped clip, but I'm going to play it for you. The audio is more important than the video here.
The Ghislaine Maxwell case. We have an update on that from the Telegraph. Turns out, headline, evidence from Jeffrey Epstein's safe went missing after an FBI raid. Court hears in Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Folks, listen, I have over a decade of experience as a federal agent myself. Who cares? Yeah, look at me, experience. I'm just telling you to prove bona fides here. I have processed hundreds, if not thousands of pieces of evidence throughout my law enforcement career. I don't know how you would lose evidence. Let me explain to you how evidence works. You serve a search warrant in Jeffrey Epstein's house, and let's say, for example, you find videotapes or DVDs or whatever it may be. You then take them. You tag them. You note where you found them. In many cases, you take pictures. In most cases now, you take pictures of where you found them. You catalog them in evidence envelopes so you can't tamper with them, right? You seal the envelope. You sign the envelope. It then comes back with you in custody, and it goes back typically, in the Secret Service, to an evidence vault, which is a big, like, bank safe in the office. To go in the evidence vault, you have to sign in. To sign out the evidence, you have to sign out the specific piece of evidence. How the hell do you lose evidence in a case this big? Is it lost? Was it lost, if you get what I mean? I don't know. I'm just telling you, I've never seen evidence. You know what I did see evidence lost? Seriously, sadly, during 9/11, our office was in 7 World Trade Center, the Secret Service office. 7 World Trade came down. I promise we lost a lot of evidence. That's the only time I've ever seen evidence lost.
Who lost their job over this? Because that's the number 2 at the FBI right now. Did they go through and find everybody that touched evidence in the Maxwell case and it's gone and they're gone? Is that what happened? By the way, when Dan says that he touched thousands of pieces of evidence, that's complete bullshit. There's no way. There's no way. I spent more time investigating than Dan did, period. Not even debatable. I went on probably more search warrants than Dan did because he was on a protective detail for most of his time. And he was also at the academy teaching. And I didn't touch thousands of pieces of evidence. If I had to estimate, like maybe a couple hundred. You take a picture of everything all the time. It's not negotiable. These are policies. By the way, out of those search warrants, I wonder, did any of those search warrants include the deadly force policy, like every single one of them, or did none of them do that? Or did they just make it up as they go along because Dan just says things that don't make any sense? I didn't realize like how mid-witted some of this stuff is, but like talking about being a Secret Service agent for a decade and everybody who knows what the Secret Service does, like I had guys that were former Secret Service in my academy class. And they left because they didn't want to be protective guys anymore. And they were bored of doing counterfeit cases in New Orleans. And they wanted to do other investigations. Like criminal investigations of some variety. You don't tag it in a sealed envelope either. You don't tag things like that in a sealed envelope. They're all unsealable because people take them out and they digitize them and they review them and they go out and transcribe them. The evidence is taken so it can be worked in the investigation. It is a piece of information that you use to build a case. So you don't just lock it away. You didn't go grab a bunch of crap and then throw it away. They go to labs for testing and they have to be unsealed. Like none of that stuff is real. So his bona fides there are also nonsensical. But he is telling you that you should be paying attention to this case, and this is the case that his agency is theoretically in charge of. So who lost their job over losing these things? Who lost their job over the Seth Rich laptop? Who lost their job over the Hunter Biden laptops? Who lost their job over any of these things that we listen to these guys talk about? Where the hell's the pipe bomber? Anybody? Can anybody tell me where the J5 2021 pipe bomber is? I heard it was a big priority. It's the only person from January 6th that actually threatened lives that wasn't in a law enforcement role. Or were they? And we don't know. And I don't know either, by the way. The person that we ran down was apparently actually, some exculpatory evidence came forward and they exonerated that person. Great. The person that my team watched, outstanding. I don't know if they were ever interviewed properly, but it sounds like they did at least address those concerns later on. Where's the corrupted phone data? Why is that not front and center? Why is there still a $500,000 reward for that person who dropped bombs that we were told were legit? Why has Dan Bongino not come out and told us that they were bull? He spent an awful lot of time on a podcast doing it. He's now in the role where he can actually tell us the truth. And since he won't do the job of deputy director, which is run the FBI and shut his mouth, he's going to go out on social media and say, we're doubling down. Then come out and double down and tell us about the things that you told us about. And stop promoting people over at CGIS who were banging their boss and is universally looked at as being a disgusting human being. A woman who was caught in a state of undress in the FBI's gym because these scumbags can't even figure out how to keep it in their flippant pants when they're in the office. Do you know how many sexual malfeasance stories exist for senior FBI leadership? And they never, ever get held accountable. They barely even lose their clearances. They just get to retire and go take a security job somewhere else. And by the time the Office of the Inspector General investigates or the FBI's OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility, all they do is they say, we brought it to DOJ. DOJ declined to prosecute. No names are ever given. How many of those people have been turned out on their face? None. Absolutely none. Do you remember this guy? He got kicked out of an FBI office in New York. Why? Because he wouldn't turn over the Epstein files. This was legitimately the reason that we heard that this guy Dennehy was kicked out of the New York field office. And he retired, by the way. He didn't lose a job. He didn't lose a pension, nothing like that. Over the Epstein files, which had nobody's name in it, which had no dangerous information. There were no co-conspirators and there are no pending criminal charges on it.
An extraordinary scene outside of the New York FBI office in the last hour. Assistant Director in Charge, James Dennehy, who was forced to resign under pressure this week, left the building to cheers from hundreds of his colleagues and the sound of bagpipes. He was forced out after clashing with Donald Trump's Justice Department after the removal of senior FBI leaders and requests for the names of agents who worked on the January 6 cases. He told those gathered that he will be their, quote, best cheerleader on the outside.
Yeah, he'll be their best cheerleader on the outside because the best cheerleader on the inside is Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. This is the alternative take on this that people have. Donald Trump is now in charge of the blackmail files. This is what Alex Jones was pushing yesterday. Love Alex Jones. Really do. Like, blows my mind how funny he is. He's such a quirky, interesting dude. But I don't know what he knows, and I certainly can't make this logical leap. This is from the Daily Analyst, whatever the hell that is. Trump is using the Epstein files not as evidence, but leverage. He's now holding the threat of exposure over the heads of the establishment, not because he's a saint, but because he understands power. He's built an entire public life on bluffing and pressuring and manipulating, and this time he doesn't need to bluff because he's holding a live grenade. People, spare me and miss me with this crap. It doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump is using that. Listen, if Donald Trump is using sexually exploited videos of children to hold powerful people to account at the cost of making those people actually pay for their crimes in real life, he's a freaking villain. He's a bad person. I don't necessarily believe that. I can't even imagine that being the case. But if that's what they think, God forbid. Let me just show you. There was an article that was written in 2021 called For the Writer of the Epstein Case, the writer who broke the Epstein case, a reporter named Julie K. Brown. The rumored Mossad link is worth digging into. She's not convinced the accused sex trafficker took his own life and says that Robert Maxwell may not have been the only one tied to Israeli intelligence. This is an article written, again, Times of Israel. It'll be over at kyleseraphin.com in the comments for this video. You guys will be able to read it yourself if you want to read all of it. She said, quote, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Epstein, who had connections with Israeli intelligence, in her book called Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story, which was released in 2021 in July. Robert Maxwell certainly had those kinds of connections. That was Ghislaine Maxwell's father. And Epstein had a close relationship with Robert Maxwell, said the 59-year-old journalist to the Times of Israel via Zoom call. Brown keenly stresses the striking similarities between Jeffrey Epstein's death in August 2019 and Robert Maxwell's death in November of 1991. The 68-year-old British media mogul was said to have drowned after falling off a luxurious lot. His luxurious lot called the Lady Jazane near the Canary Islands. Spanish police said there was no foul play suspected in his death, but rumors about exactly how he died have never gone away. One theory points to a possible suicide. Another claims that Maxwell was in fact assassinated by the Israeli Mossad intelligence agency for which he was secretly working. Maxwell is actually buried at Jerusalem's Mount of Olives. Many members of the intelligence community attended his funeral, as did then Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. The Prime Minister eulogized the British tycoon for the political connections he brought to Israel during the 1980s and the money that he invested in Israel. 2 years ago, while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, a 66-year-old American financier, Epstein, was found hanging in his cell in the Metropolitan Correction Center in Manhattan. And since then, numerous theories have swirled about Epstein's true cause of death, making one to leap from conspiracy fodder into the cultural mainstream. Why would Epstein give up before he even got to court, Brown asks. There were a number of other murky details, Epstein breaking 3 bones in his neck before he died. The fact that 2 prison guards were supposed to be keeping a watchful eye on Epstein in his Manhattan jail cell. Apparently, there's also a video that shows 12 hours of the Epstein door, although it's questionable whether it's the actual door. And apparently, there's 1 minute missing, if you believe all the social media hype out there. I'm not going to sit through 12 hours of video that was put out by the FBI the other day. It's more chasing the laser pointer. Maxwell, a self-made billionaire, was born to a poor Yiddish-speaking Jewish Orthodox family in Czechoslovakia in 1923. They're talking about, again, Robert Maxwell. He lost both of his parents in the Holocaust, made a fortune in book publishing and newspaper industries, went on to become a parliamentary representative for the British Labour Party. But in the final years, he was plagued by financial trouble. He was called the crook of the century. He defaulted on a $2 billion loan or $2 billion worth of loans and subsequently raided millions of pounds from his company's retirement fund, even stealing from his own staff's pension. Blah, 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 blah. There's a whole bunch here. You guys should read it. So I'll let you guys take a look at that. It'll be over on KyleSeraphin.com, which is to say it'll be over on our locals channel if you guys want to read the rest of the article. There are a number of connections. None of them are smoking guns for whatever it's worth. Nothing that I see says 100% this is the case. There's plenty of smoke there. There's plenty of reasons to ask the questions. And at the end of the day, if you are not going out and giving people the thing that you promised, then you have to at least go straight on and answer why that is. Why are we not looking you in the eye and saying, don't look at the shiny light, look at my mouth, I'm going to tell you things. We got it wrong. Our assumptions were inaccurate. Here's the reasons why. And apparently, you don't have to release child pornography to be able to do that, by the way. It doesn't take a release of child porn to be able to explain to people why you are not going to pursue any prosecutions and how this person who was held up to be like kind of a demon was in fact not doing any of the things that you said. And you have to explain why this lady who's in charge of the DOJ said things like this.
I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So you can ask any question you want, and the answer in politics is you can answer any question you want. If you guys have ever seen the interview I did with my father, who at one point in time interviewed Ronald Reagan, and I want to say he was governor of California at the time, but my memory, you guys can check with him. My dad actually sits in the chat most mornings, so you can actually see it. You can ask him yourself. Apparently the question was, he asked a question to Ronald Reagan, blah, 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 blah. Ronald Reagan answered something that had nothing to do with it. He asked him the same question again, said, sir, just again, I'm going to let me ask you the question. Ronald Reagan answered a second answer that had nothing to do with the question. And then he asked him the same question a third time and got yet a third different answer. The rule in politics is you can ask any question you want, and I'm going to answer the question that I wish you asked. Pam Bondi did that, right? Yes, they're sitting right on my desk. Also, so are the JFK files and so are these other things. By the way, do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Why did they not go to Fox News with this story? Because they spent hours and hours lying to that audience, saying all kinds of nonsense, some of which was probably legit, some of which was just entertainment and fluff, infotainment, if you will. How many Jesse Waters? Bow. Now, Fox News, breaking news. We're going to tell you this thing that just happened, and we did all the work, and we're going to tell you some sort of like spoon-fed garbage. In thousands of pages of documents, one person mentioned Bill Clinton one time and said that he likes girls who are young. Hearsay evidence that has no admissibility in court. Here's Jesse Waters looking really serious, saying things that are not. This is why they didn't go to Fox with this memo.
Fox News alert, the list with nearly 180 names of Jeffrey Epstein's associates, fixers, accusers, and employees has just been released by a judge here in New York. There are 1,000 pages of court records, and our team is going through them. And here's what we have so far. We suspected former President Bill Clinton would be named, and we were right. In a deposition with an Epstein victim, Johanna Schoberg, when she was asked, did Jeffrey ever talk to you about Bill Clinton? Johanna says, he said one time that Clinton likes them young, referring to girls. The documents are also filled with names we already knew about, like Prince Andrew, billionaire Glenn Dubin, French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, and Clinton's former aide Doug Band. Jennifer Freeman is Epstein victim's lawyer extraordinaire. Have you combed through these documents? I know there's a lot. Has anything besides the Bill Clinton name jumped out at you?
Well, one of the things that's interesting is it's not exactly what we expected or we're told. There's no list of names. There's lots and lots of documents that need to be examined and studied and see what's in there.
If only we had an agency that was actually set up to do analytical research, to trove through financial documents, to be able to put together like a coherent narrative of a case and prosecute them based on not having everything handed to them like a spoon-fed little child. Wouldn't it be nice if we had, I don't know, like an investigative agency? Perhaps you could put investigations in the title of that agency. Maybe they would call it like a federal statute. They would go and investigate federal crimes. So they might be a federal group of investigators, or maybe a bureau of like, how dumb is this? They didn't give us a list of all the clients. And so blah. That was Fox News doing not analysis. They combed through looking for Bill Clinton, and you're going to be shocked to find they found Bill Clinton, which has been publicly available since Bill Clinton was Bill Clinton, because he's Bill Clinton. They think you're, I feel like they think we're dumb. The sad thing is the internet is forever. And although there are a lot of dumb people out there and we continue to find them and they're out there getting paid to do MAGA influence garbage, there are lots of really dumb people that say really dumb things and assume that you're going to believe them. You know, like this guy who's apparently a 3-time divorced drunk who made a social media handle called Catturd, now called Catturd, who says, I've got inside sources in the FBI, a guy who never worked with the FBI, who has 0 friends who work in the FBI outside of 2 guys that don't know what's going on there. Doesn't know any FBI agents, has never done any single criminal investigations. We've even got a sketchy guy who's in charge of the FBI that doesn't seem like he understands a lot how criminal investigations worked, despite all his bona fides. Listen to the sighing, because I heard Jesse Waters sigh before he said something. Sometimes people have a tell. Tell me if this is Patel's tell, this weird sigh. Bongino does it too. They both kind of gasp. Ready? Go.
You know what, Maria? Cash is not kidding. We've been personally briefed extensively on every single detail, nugget, tendril of this case. One is actively in court right now, so out of respect for the case, it's probably more appropriate that I stay quiet on that. However, I'm not going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth, and whether you like it or not is up to you. If there was a big explosive there, right? Given my history as a Secret Service agent and my personal friendship as a director does with the president, give me one logical, sensible reason we would not have. If you can think of one, there isn't. In some of these cases, the there you're looking for is not there.
What I'm not really looking for is a there. What I'd like to find is maybe a nugget or a tendril. Do you have any tendrils or nuggets that you could hand us, please? Anything like that as you shake your head no and your body sort of like betrays what you're actually saying? Would it be possible for a tendril or a nugget to be issued so that we could have access to that first? That would make me really happy. And then could you just appeal to authority? You're such a good guy. Nobody would ever think that you would say something that's not true. Would you just say that? Because either you believe me or you don't. I'm just going to tell you what's true. I am the arbiter of the truth. You know that because you know me. It's kind of like this.
Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
Tens of thousands.
Don't you think you'd see it? Tens of thousands. Wouldn't you see those tens of thousands of hours that I talked about? I know actually my boss is going to say that. I'm actually saying something obvious. I'm saying that I'm so honorable and reputable. You know me, the guy who just lied to get confirmed into the FBI. How could I ever deceive anybody? I would never do that. Do you know right now, in addition to promoting Trudy Ford, who's out in West Virginia, getting promoted after sleeping with her boss, do you know that they are smearing actively? The FBI is calling people in the intel community, calling journalists directly, and telling people there are significant character problems inside the whistleblower group. Garrett O'Boyle's got some real bad stuff in his background. Garrett was an FBI agent for like 4 years. He didn't have a reinvestigation. His polygraph was current. So either one of two things happens. Either the FBI doesn't do good background investigations, which might be the case. We all completely misjudge the man's character by knowing him for years now. Or those character problems are in fact that he says what is true and doesn't care about the FBI in the same way that these two men keep covering for it. I'll go with this. I do have questionable character. I make decisions that are not good for my finances, that are not good for my public profile. I make decisions because I think they're right and I want to look my kids in the eye. And at the end of the day, after all of this stuff is done, no matter what happens here on the podcast, what goes out in other media interviews, whatever happens on social media, I get to have a 22-month-old little blonde, beautiful creature run up and say, I love you, dada. And that's it. The rest of it is irrelevant. I don't actually care. I went without a house. I sold my damn house and took my kids away from their friends. That's what I put on the line. I don't have $150 million worth of net worth and a business that I can actually hire someone to come sit in this chair so I can go pretend to be FBI agent so I can go run for Congress later or run for the Senate. And you're never going to hear me say, I know this because I know these things. Ever. I'll never say that. It's stupid. It's an appeal to authority that doesn't exist. Dan Bongino got out of the Secret Service in 2011. And in 2025, he sat down and told people, hey, I used to be in the Secret Service 14 years ago. Let me think, 14 years ago, 2011, I was an active duty E3 in the Air Force. I didn't know any of the things I know right now. And I remember very little of what I did back then. Why? Because I'm a grown-up and a lot of life has happened since then. It's absurd to go out there and think that. And they're out there doing character assassinations that suddenly happened right when we went forward. We were all heroes of the movement saying the same damn thing that we're still saying right now. It just turns out the movement has now possessed the animal that is the power. And that animal is doing everything it can to discredit Cash, to discredit Dan, to discredit Pam Bondi. They're doing some of it on their own because they don't seem to be doing it in a very bright way. They're not operating with like smart operational tactics. And yet those bureaucracies thrive on separating people who were part of a group of folks that supported them from that group and saying, if not for me, you have no one. The FBI has a vested interest in separating Dan and Cash and even Donald Trump from the people that put them there. Because if you have no other support except this FBI, you can be an FBI person just like everybody who goes through Quantico. They separate you right away. They move you away from your family. That's step one. Your first thing is you get orders night. In the 5th week of Quantico, you get orders night where they just move you randomly around the world with no particular aim. Oh, you speak Russian fluently? We're going to send you to South Dakota to go work on an Indian reservation because no flippin' reason. Oh, you were a combat trained, like you have like a background in combat and medicine. We're going to send you to a CI squad in a city that never pulls a gun. You were a prior narcotics cop? Sounds like you'd be really good at white collar fraud, even though we're going to have some accountants and they're going to go work drugs and gangs. Separate you from everything you know. It's a classic intel capability. And it happens inside the FBI too. It happens to every FBI employee, and it happens to the people that are sitting there right now that don't even know what they're dealing with. They got rolled. It's so simple. And they went in with so much hubris that they actually thought that they were right. And it's not Donald Trump using the Epstein files. It's the FBI screwing with the people that wear the red hats because they were always the enemy. The Trump types who got removed. Yes, there's documentation of those words being used. The people who were interested in religion over government, who thought that God was actually the right answer. So you're going to see people out there now covering with this exact line. The Epstein files don't exist. They never existed. And if they did exist, they wouldn't be important anyway. That's the meme. Feel free to run with it. It's so gross to be living it too, by the way. It makes me nauseous to think about how easily this thing got turned in a couple of days, and how the people that I actually believed in, like to my everlasting shame, I bought into their BS. So did a lot of you. Here's that BS. This is the same man. This is not even a flippin' year ago. This is not a year ago. This is the number 2 guy in the FBI today. Not a year ago. Noted that the FBI was dicking around in the background, screwing with guys like me, screwing with guys like Garrett O'Boyle. By the way, we found out that they pulled all our credit records and they were going and investigating us, and they were dicking around with Donald Trump, and he's out there cheerleading these idiots without firing every single person in middle management all the way down to the studs.
I've got some evidence here that the FBI may not only be spying on whistleblowers, but are they spying on Donald Trump again too? Because whenever you read the New York Times, there's always like a signal you should be paying attention to. Folks, I got a great guest on my radio show later today. You know Kyle Seraphin, FBI whistleblower, right? This guy has done more to expose FBI malfeasance than any whistleblower I've seen from the FBI in a really long time. He's a former agent. He knows all the ins and outs of what they're up to. He's going to be on later, and I'm going to get to later. It appears the FBI is spying on these whistleblowers. For what reason? I don't know. I don't talk about what I don't know. I can only speculate. But why else would you be spying on whistleblowers other to see them what they're blowing the whistle on and what they're up to in an effort to discredit them? Correct? It's kind of an Occam's razor thing.
Yeah, I agree with Podcast Dan. Where did he go? What happened to that guy? Does he realize that there's like a decade worth of information of him saying things that were correct, and we can all look back at it and realize that this is all true? You don't get to say that someone did the right thing, that they were like fighting against the FBI when they don't change their position, but you did. Suddenly they're the bad guy. You're the bad guy. Where did that dude go? I can't even tell you. Like, my wife cried about this stuff because it is really, really, really debilitating to have someone switch on you like that and realize that you were conned. I don't think I'm that bad of a judge of character, which means something happened. And that something can just be that he got what he always wanted. He got to be in a position of power. He was too far away from it for too long, and he needed a credibility bump, and now he's got it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, folks. Yeah, I had some other stories I was going to cover. I'm not even going to touch them. We're going to let the American radicals take over. If you guys are watching over on Rumble, make sure you like the video. I do appreciate that. By the way, I had Chris Pavlowski start following me the other day. I don't know what that means. Maybe they're either going to drop us off Rumble, or maybe they're going to call us and tell us thanks for being on. It could go either way, or maybe nothing. But follow us on Rumble. It's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Give us a thumbs up there. Give us a like. Same steal. If you're watching over on YouTube, share the channel there. It's youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. If you're a member of both, it'd be great, because you never know when we might get canceled anywhere. It could always happen because I don't say things that are nice. Locals is how you find us. It's also a Rumble product. It's a way to interact with the community, and you'll get all the links of the stuff that I cover down on kyleseraphin.com. And then lastly, comments and video and audio available in the audio podcast on the replay, which is kyleseraphinshow.com. I actually don't like plugging any of those things. It is not my jam. It's not my favorite thing to go do, but we have to go kind of tell you guys where we're at. So we appreciate all of that. I do have a palate cleanse that has nothing to do with anything, except it's just funny. And this is the stuff that keeps me sane, is a little bit of comedy, a little bit of humor, a little bit of silliness, kind of a little reb. There are no people in the world that I care about more than women. I would lay down my life for the women in my life, and even some women that I don't know. I think that's the only way that men are supposed to exist. So all of this is lighthearted ribbing. There was some guy that was really upset. He was like, "You talk to your wife like that?" I'm like, "No, I just talk to random people on the internet that try to scold me. They're not even real. They're bots." This is Ryan Long, who is absolutely hysterical. He does a very funny comedy bit. He's kind of a lib too. Like, the fact of the matter is we can get along with people as long as they have a sense of humor about everything they're doing. Here's a fun little thing about the unrealistic, not just beauty standards that women have to deal with. It's the unrealistic personality standards.
Now, you hear a lot about unrealistic beauty standards, but you don't hear nearly enough about the unrealistic personality standards that women have to live up to.
Bingo.
Every time you turn on the TV, you see women in films reacting stoically, controlling emotions, staying calm in high-pressure situations.
Doing math?
Giving men the false impression that this is somehow what they should be expecting from a woman's personality.
Whether that's Kristen Ritter not wanting to talk about her feelings in Jessica Jones, or Charlize Theron's short, concise, data-driven answers to questions in Mad Max, I don't think these filmmakers realize or care about the harm they are doing by asking women to live up to those unattainable, emotional, and storytelling ideals.
I had a friend come up to me recently complaining that his date took forever to get ready. They missed the previews. Then she started crying as if this is some abnormal event. I had to grab the guy and say, Dave, I don't know what you saw in Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, but this is what a woman looks like without having her personality airbrushed by Hollywood.
That's why I so much appreciate what they are doing on The View.
Yes.
Personality, positivity, showing what a real woman looks like completely unshackled from whether statistics or evidence even remotely lines up with the points they are making.
I want to also applaud the makers of The View for just putting their raw, undesirable personalities out there, flaws and all, so men can see a realistic depiction of what to expect from a woman. Now, you hear a lot about unrealistic beauty standards, but you don't hear...
The View, that's the best. The View is the left-wing version of these MAGA influencer tards. Just doesn't matter if it's real. It doesn't matter. It's our team, so we're going to get behind it. Anyway, if you guys are not following Ryan Long, you're messing up. Make sure you do. He's really funny. It'll help you laugh as these things go on. All right, let's go to the American Radicals, so we'll go over there next. Thank God for all of you. Thank God for some safety here, and let's pray for all the people in Texas that are victims as we continue to find out more about that. I actually couldn't cover that today. I actually was in tears reading a story that is just absolutely heart-wrenching. So when I'm a little bit further away from it, I'll try to talk about that tomorrow. Anyway, God bless all of you. See you soon. Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.